Wake up! It's game day!
Well, not yet. ESPN's College Game Day is heading up to Seattle with USC this weekend. In Jackson, looks like we have some game day fans of our own.
There's some pretty wild signs. I'm digging them. But we're going to have more in the big game coming up, and USC men's water polo star Lachlan Edwards joins me in studio. Sports Scene starts now.
Welcome to the luxurious Annenberg Media Center. I'm Josh Cohen.
And I'm Jackson Safon. It looks like some of our game day fans must have gone to Ralph's to get some more tailgating supplies. But the USC football team is headed to the Pacific Northwest this weekend for arguably their biggest game of the season. The Trojans will face the still undefeated Huskies under the lights on Saturday in a matchup that could change the entire Pac-12 landscape, Josh.
Absolutely. If Washington wins, it would validate their undefeated start. It would also put the Huskies completely in the driver's seat for a playoff berth. And it would at least start to silence the critics about maybe having an easy schedule. If USC wins, however, though, it would prove this team's transformation is real and would also put all the pressure back on Utah and Colorado in that Pac-12 South
Absolutely.
race. Quarterback Sam Darnold understands just how big this game could be for the program.
I think it could be a defining moment for our whole team, to be honest, just for our whole turnaround, you know, how we started, how we're finishing this year. I mean, we want to finish on a high note, and what would be better than beating the number 4 team in the nation?
I mean, he's right. But this is where the rubber meets the road for USC, as they've now won 5 straight games after their abysmal start. The Trojans dominated the Ducks in all phases of the game this past Saturday, more than doubling their yardage output. Ronald Jones had another monster game, over 170 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Jones has now had the biggest back-to-back rushing output since the Reggie Bush era, Josh.
It's huge. And Sam Darnold continued his stellar play, but it's the defense that was arguably more impressive, Jackson. The Trojans held the vaunted Rolls-Royce Freeman to under 4 yards per carry and quarterback Justin Herbert to under 5 yards per attempt.
It's amazing. And while Oregon's offense, they were no doubt dynamic, Washington's this weekend is going to be at another level. The Huskies are leading the conference, averaging over 48 points per game, and they're led by Heisman contender sophomore quarterback Jake Browning. And Browning is leading the entire nation in passer rating as 34 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. But we'll get to more Browning talk later.
Absolutely. Washington is a complete football team with a downright scary defense. The Huskies are allowing the fewest points per game in the conference and have forced the second most turnovers. The loaded Washington secondary is headlined by Budda Baker and Sidney Jones. Jackson, they both look like first-round talents.
Yeah, if USC is going to pull the upset in Seattle, Sam Darnold needs to make sure to stay mistake-free against that secondary. He's had a little bit of trouble turning the ball over in the past. He had an interception last week. So staying mistake-free against that secondary and against a Washington team that's first in the conference in turnover margin and penalty yards is going to be a huge key this weekend.
No question about it. But the Washington secondary will be under even more pressure going forward as outside linebacker Joe Mathis is out for the season with a foot injury. Mathis had 5 sacks in the first 4 games for the Huskies and was a key part of their pass rush.
And on the USC side of things, it looks as though Justin Davis will return to the backfield this weekend after missing the last 3 games with a high ankle sprain. Fellow running back Aka Cedric Ware is questionable for the game, along with a few defensive players for USC. 2 cornerbacks, Iman Marshall and Jonathan Lockett, are both questionable, along with defensive tackle Stevie Tuikolovatu. The USC will need as much help as they can get on the defensive side of the ball, as they will face a dynamic Washington offense on Saturday. For more on that, Josh and Aaron have more.
We now go from football to more football. It's no secret that Washington has a prolific offense this year. I'm now joined by Aaron Glazer to talk about some of the stars on this Husky offense. Aaron, thank you so much for being here.
Always a pleasure, Josh.
So we start out with quarterback Jake Browning. He's obviously the focal point of this offense. Clay Helton has been very impressed by Browning's play thus far.
Touchdown interception ratio off the charts, 34 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, and does a tremendous job of doing the 3 things I think a great quarterback has to do: decision making, timing, and accuracy.
Aaron, what makes Jake Browning such an elite quarterback?
Well, Jake Browning, what he's able to do is he has a very, very high football IQ. He uses his teammates quite well, using his supporting cast to find other options when he needs to, but then as well, when it's time for him to shine, he takes that opportunity upon himself. You look at his numbers right here, 3.8 touchdowns per game. That's quite high for a quarterback. He had 6 last week against California. So you look at him, he's overall just got a very strong presence on the football field, which is definitely something opposing teams like the Trojans should be a little bit worried about.
No question about it. He's been fantastic this year, but so too have been his wide receivers. We have Dante Pettis and John Ross, as we see right here. What makes this tandem so difficult to defend?
Well, they're especially troubling in the end zone. They have 25 touchdowns between them. After these two receivers, the next highest receiver has only 4 touchdowns. So Browning, these are his go-to guys. This is who he wants when he makes plays, and they're so versatile. They're fast. They can get you all over the field, and so it's really hard for defenses to be able to cover one, much less both of them. It's hard in college football. 2 strong receivers like these guys have has really led them to the type of college football playoff ranking they've experienced this week.
Absolutely. Number 4 in the country. And both of those guys, Southern California guys as well, who made their way up to the Pacific Northwest to play their college ball. But with all this talk about the passing game, we must not forget about the ground game. That brings us, of course, to Myles Gaskin, who's proven to be one of the best ball carriers in the conference. Clay Helton knows exactly just how lethal this guy can be.
I've been really impressed with Gaskin. Kid's averaging 6.3 a carry, and one of the more patient runners that we've seen. The maturity to his game is very impressive. He reminds you of a Le'Veon Bell with kind of how he bounces in and out of holes and is extremely patient, waiting for blocks to happen.
Clay Helton with the lofty comparison to Le'Veon Bell. We see it there. He's been fantastic this season. How on earth do you contain this guy?
Well, Myles Gaskin, he's got almost 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns this year. When he averages 6.3 yards per carry, he's getting past that first line of defense. But it's that second line is what really needs to stop him, linebackers. Now, you prefer the first line gets to him, of course, but it's guys like Michael Hutchings or Cam Smith for the Trojans. They need to contain Gaskin early. If they can't get to him early, he's going to have a big day.
USC's defense will be put to the test Saturday in prime time. Aaron, thank you for joining me. We're looking forward to this one.
The USC men's water polo team avenged its only loss of the season last weekend when they took down then number 2 Cal. I'm now joined by one of the stars of the team, junior Lachlan Edwards. Lachlan, thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me.
So you guys have been obviously very successful in your 3 years here, but this year more so than last. You had 7 losses each of your first 2 seasons and only 1 loss so far this season. So what do you think has been the difference between this year and the years past?
I think just everyone's older now. We had a big freshman class my year come in, so now it's 2 years later. So everyone's getting used to playing with each other, and yeah, it's I think we're close now. So
yeah, I mean the record really shows that. Especially last weekend, you guys had a big win against Cal. That was your only loss this season. So how good did it feel to get that sort of revenge victory and get back on track?
yeah, it was pretty sweet. Definitely stoked with that win. Yeah, it was pretty disappointing losing to them at their pool earlier in the year, but no, it was definitely good to get it back in our pool.
Yeah, and this weekend theoretically could be a preview of the national championship game. You guys are number 2, UCLA is number 1, and they've won 57 matches in a row. So how big would it be to get this win, and what do you guys think you have to do to sort of break their streak?
I think if we play like we did we played against Cal, I think we should win it. But we just got to put together what we've been taught, what we're being coached, and yeah, I think we should have it in the bag.
So your older brother Blake also plays on the team. He's a few years older, but he transferred here your sophomore year. Mm-hmm. What's it been like not only playing with him, but having him at the school and having just another person, family member here with you?
No complaints. He's obviously we get into a few brotherly arguments, but no, it's definitely good. It's having someone that I've played with my whole life, so you get that kind of connection. It's always like I said, it was always hard when we came in and there was a bunch of freshmen. Everyone has to learn how to play together, but just having one person that you've played with your whole life. Yeah, it's definitely, you pick up that chemistry in the pool a lot quicker.
You guys have both played on Australian national teams in the past. What's been sort of the highlight of your international career?
Probably World Cup. We played together in that. That was our first major tournament together. Yeah. Apart from that, I mean, I've played a lot with him back home with our club team in our national league back home in Australia. So that's pretty exciting. But I mean, definitely playing in Kazakhstan in the World Cup in 2014 was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. So with 1 loss, you guys are obviously number 2 in the nation, one of them real contenders for the national championship. But for you guys, is this season championship or bust? Like if you don't win it all, is it sort of a loss of a season?
It would definitely be pretty crushing to lose, but right now I can't see that happening. I think we've got all the tools. We just have to show up on the day, and I think it should be yeah, it should be all right.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me, Lachlan. You can catch Lachlan and the rest of the Trojans at the U-Tank Aquatic Center on Saturday at 11 when they take on the top-ranked UCLA Bruins in what could be a championship preview.
The women's soccer team has finished the regular season and is now preparing for the NCAA tourney. The women of Troy earned a spot as a 2 seed and will face Eastern Washington in the first round. I'm now joined by Ben Albert to discuss the upcoming tournament. Ben, thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Let's do this thing. So, the bracket comes out. USC's a 2 seed. What do you make of the bracket and USC's path?
Sure. Well, as you said, being a 2 seed ties the highest ranking ever, and it's a good position for USC. They're going to be able to play at least one, if not two, potentially quote-unquote lesser opponents. But at the same time, it's the tourney. Every opponent could potentially upset the team, so you can't take anything for granted. USC opens with Eastern Washington in their first round at home. Presumably, we'll have another home game against either Texas A&M and TCU. You like the home field advantage, at least for the first couple rounds.
You absolutely do. And USC was cruising at the tail end of the regular season, and then the loss to UCLA. The crosstown rival at the StubHub Center, a 1-0 defeat. Do you have any new concerns after that game?
I do. I think the defense, once again, proved that it's stout and it's one of the best in the country. Sammy Joe Prudhomme, for instance, Goalkeeper of the Year award. Mandy Freeman was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. My concerns are on offense. In that game, regardless of the stats, if you were watching, you saw that even if we put shots, quote-unquote, on goal, they weren't the best opportunities. They were pretty easy snags for the UCLA goalkeeper, and I'm concerned that we may not be able to generate enough offense to win a game in the postseason when we really need it.
That truly was shocking in that game. USC not generating the quality scoring chances we see them normally do, especially last 10 minutes when they were down a goal. You thought there was going to be just an inundation of chances, not to be, and they lose to UCLA. Agonizing, but now fresh start with the tournament. Big opportunity as they play Eastern Washington coming up in the first round. My final question for you, Ben. I know we've discussed this on air before. Is this still a national championship team?
The talent is there. I believe the motivation is there. So yes, I do think this is a national championship team. They've got a smoother path than they have in years past with a couple home games to start, and they've proven themselves with big wins over other tournament teams like Stanford. The one thing that I worry about will be just the unfamiliarity with the teams, so we'll see how that plays out going forward.
It all starts on Saturday at 1 p.m. at McAllister Field when the women of Troy host the Eagles of Eastern Washington. Perhaps members of the women's soccer team will seek some advice prior to the NCAA tourney. If that's the case, Sports Scene's own Alex Duplessis knows exactly who they should talk to.
For David Scott, every day starts off with a little gospel music and a smile. Lovingly known as Pops, his official job involves overseeing football equipment. But to everyone in the McKay Center, he takes on a much bigger job.
He's basically the dad of this place. He runs it, you know?
The reason why you call him Pops is because he takes care of you. Not only, just handling our clothes, our loops, but just about life. He teaches you about life, and I learned a lot from him.
I've known Pops ever since I stepped foot on his campus, and I've been in his office every single day. There's not a day I have not been in his office and talked to him.
I can go to him for anything, literally. A hug, to ask for advice, if I'm going through problems, if I just need to tell him my deepest, darkest secret. He's literally always there.
As a former business consultant, Pops is no stranger to giving advice. His wisdom is one thing, but perhaps what USC athletes and staff love most about Pops is how he can always brighten their day.
He notices when you're having maybe a bad day or a little off. He's going to say the right thing to kind of cheer you up, inspire you, motivate you.
Anytime he's in the hallway or anytime you pass by him, he asks for a hug and he asks about your day, and it's just refreshing getting to see him every day. And even if you're having a bad day, he manages to make it better.
It's always going to be positive, and he's just a ray of shining light, of positivity.
You can always put a smile on your face, and whenever you're in a dark time or something's going up, he'll know, and he'll call you in and cheer you up a little bit.
Over the past 12 years Pops has spent at USC, he's worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of student athletes. Even though it's not part of his job description, he feels a big part of his job is being someone student athletes can turn to whenever they need help.
I mean, when I say it's all about the kids, it is all about the kids. I mean, we're here for the kids. It's so important to make a difference in a young person's life Didn't realize that when I first got here. Never thought that I would be doing what I'm doing today.
Ultimately, one of the biggest reasons Pops is there for USC's student athletes is because he wants what's best for them, now and in the future.
I want to make sure all these kids, when they come here, to make sure they get their degree. That is so important.
When student athletes leave USC, Pops just wants to be sure they have something to whistle about. For Sports Scene, I'm Alex Duplessis.
The USC men's basketball team tips off its season Friday with head coach Andy Enfield looking to continue his upward trend heading into year 4. This year's team looks a lot different than the team that made its first NCAA tournament appearance since 2011 last season, with just 5 players returning who have gotten action for USC. Point guard Julian Jacobs and forward Nikola Jovanovic both tried their hand at the NBA, only to go undrafted and are now in the D-League, while 4 others transferred. However, USC didn't lose all of its talent. Top scorer and now co-captain junior Jordan McLaughlin returns with an increased role to make up for the loss of Jacobs. McLaughlin will take on more of a true point position as a facilitator rather than his typical score-first mentality. He was named to the Bob Cousy Point Guard of the Year watch list. The sophomore starter duo of co-captain Benny Boatwright and Chimezi Metu also have a year of experience under their belts. Boatwright tied for the team lead with 60 made 3 balls last season and was named to this year's Karl Malone Power Forward of the Year award watch list. Now, Metu showed incredible defensive abilities and glimpses of offensive explosiveness, but was very raw. An added year of practice and development should show rapid results for the big man. USC also has several new guys that are ready to make an instant impact on the roster. Enfield once again brought in a solid recruiting class with freshman guards Jonah Matthews and DeAnthony Melton. The 2 local guys are knockdown shooters that fit very well into Enfield's high-tempo offense. Redshirt sophomore guard Shaquan Aaron is also eligible after sitting out last season and provides a viable wing option that Enfield hasn't had in the past. USC also snagged sophomore guard Derek Thornton from Duke, but he'll have to sit out this season because of transfer rules. Thornton was a top 15 recruit out of high school and will be a huge addition for the Trojans moving forward. USC is predicted to finish 7th in the Pac-12 this season based on the preseason media poll. USC opens up the season versus Montana Friday at 8 p.m. in the Galen Center. Back to you guys in the studio, Jackson and Josh.
Thanks, Connor. Jackson, one of the most exciting things about this weekend is that ESPN's College Game Day will be in Seattle on Saturday morning. The last time the Trojans played in a College Game Day matchup was when they upset number 5 ranked Stanford back in 2013.
That's right, and USC has played in 22 College Game Day games, including bowl games, and they're a whopping 17-5 in those games. Now, most came back in the Pete Carroll days, but still pretty impressive. And what's even more impressive, Josh, is that Lee Corso, picking College Game Day, is undefeated in picking the winner in games that USC is involved in. But the real question is, what's your favorite College Game Day sign?
It has to be one that I saw in Seattle at Game Day 3 years ago, Oregon versus UW. UW lost the game, but they did have, of course, a lot of shots at the Ducks, and it had to be pretty much every sign that I saw. I'm not going to single out any single one, but I'd say Washington, they're doing a great job with their signs. Keep up the good work, Huskies.
See, for me, last year, Josh Rosen is a Hufflepuff. Shout out to whoever made that sign. That's some real action right there. But thanks for watching. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at SportsUSC. Like us on Facebook and check us out on USCAnnenbergmedia.com. We'll see you next week.